This video is designed for elementary teachers. Elementary teachers, because your students generally don't use Office 365, particularly in lower elementary, the way that your students are actually going to log into Flipgrid is going to be a little different than those students who use Office 365. So when you are creating a grid for early elementary, what you're going to be doing after you create a new grid is where it says select a grid community type, you are going to choose student ID list, and this is going to allow you to create a username for your students. So you click on student ID list, you give your grid a name. You can change the flip code again to make it easier for the students to find or recognize if it's available. You choose your banner, you click next. Now this is the area where you're going to be putting in the first and last name and the identifier that the student is going to use to actually log in. Identifier is sort of like the same word for username. There is a way where you can upload a CSV, which is like an Excel spreadsheet, but you would still have to fill out that spreadsheet with the student's first name, last name, and identifier, so I'm not sure if that's going to really save you any time or not. There is a template here that you can use to fill out and upload if you want to try that method, but the other method, if you have a small class, is to begin putting in the names in here. So you put in the first name, put in the last name, and then the identifier, you can see here, it says student identifiers must be 2 or more characters, letters, numbers, or symbols. You want to stick to something relatively simple, but you also want to make sure that the students' identifiers are going to be a little bit different than each other. So you could match it to be what their usernames might be, or you could include the year, however long or short you want it to be, but I would stick to something that makes sense for your class and that also has a very similar format for everybody in the class. This way, if a student forgets, you can remind them without having to look it up. So for instance, if I put in my next student and I want to keep some consistency, I can put in the username, year, and I can do it that way. So you would do this for each one of your students so that they would be able to access your grid. And just be sure that everything is typed correctly, otherwise the student will have trouble logging in. There's going to be another video that you're going to be able to view so that you can see how your students exactly are going to log in and access your grid if you're using this student ID list format. I'm going to click next on this. So you can see you can print out the student list here so that you will have a running list of all the student identifier names, and then if anybody forgets, you can remind them. And once you fill that out, you're ready to launch your grid, and then you are ready to go.